people are jumping on. We're so last night, I don't know, there's probably quite a few of you on there, and we were mid-discussion, and we got a call from Greg saying we had some puppies out on the road, and so we had to quickly go do that, and so we got them all in.
Yep.
We were good.
Call from Greg at
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock on a Sunday night is never a good thing.
No.
So anyway, it's just part of it. I guess the goal of this, I'm just checking the framing.
Looks good.
Good. All right. The goal of this. You want to go grab some water? The goal of this session is to sort of tie a bow on the stuff that we talked about last week. We were almost wrapping up our sort of spiel at the beginning about internships and things to think about as a prospective intern, as well as an employer or somebody who's trying to create an internship program on your farm. Sort of things to think about from both angles, and we were almost complete and about to start into the Q&A, and then had to go wrestle puppies in the dark. So I guess what I want to do for this session is sort of quick recap of what we covered last night, and then we will transition. So quick recap, sort of wrap up our discussion, and then transition into a Q&A. And so this Ask Us Anything question answer type forum deal is going to make up a larger chunk of this than it normally does, and we'll go for as long as it's interesting and as long as people want to tune in. I know it's Monday night and people might be busy.
We need to be careful about saying that, because
what
if we say that, we're gonna have to just keep going.
Yeah,
one of these times it's gonna be like 10:30.
Yeah, it's all right. I mean, I should say as long as it's interesting, or
we need to go to
when we need to go to bed, and whichever comes first. So
we're castrating steers tomorrow, so we get a big day.
Castrating bulls.
Castrating bulls,
yeah. It would be
making steers.
It'd be crazy. It'd be a little hard to castrate a steer.
That'd be easy.
Yeah. Oh, it's done.
This is done.
Okay. How are we looking on the attendance? Oh, we're good.
Yeah, we got some people.
Okay. So I guess recap really quickly from the intern perspective. Things to think about if you're looking to get into an internship or looking for a mentor, so to speak. The passion of the mentor. Mm-hmm. That was one that we talked about. Can you feel that energy from them and the passion that they have in teaching as well as what they're doing? That's big.
Is what they're doing something that you want to align yourself with, or that you want to be doing in the future?
Yep.
That's another one. The
closer you can align their internship program with what you want to be doing, the more applicable and useful it's going to be. Mm-hmm. What was another one? Sort of understanding the environment you're going to be in a lot of aspects, like as far as the program itself, how many other interns are there going to be, what's the sort of direct to like mentor connection you're going to have, is it going to be removed because of a lot of employees and managers or whatever that you're going to really be learning from, and you're not going to have that guy or girl as direct communication. That's something to think about. And then as well as like the environment you're going to be in, like what are your daily tasks going to be like? Is it going to be hot as heck? Is it going to be cold? Are you going to be used to that environment? Bugs, ticks, mm-hmm. Mosquitoes, like all those sort of like the daily grind. You need to be aware of that going into it. And I guess the last piece was, if you go through an application process for one of these things and you get to a point where you're having some serious doubts before you even start, you should always pull the plug. Like, don't, like, listen to yourself, And
doubts are different than, like, anxiety or, like kind of scared to doing it, because, like, you got to kind of face your fears.
Everything, it's new for everybody.
Right. It's always a little bit nerve-wracking to be, putting yourself out there and experimenting and stuff. But if you're like, this is not something I want to do, but you already feel like you're really committed and you want to do it, there's still plenty of time to pull the plug. And it'll be better in the long run.
Way better, because I can guarantee you that whatever you see on your visit or your from that you hear from the people that are there or whatever, it will not prepare you for those days. And if people out there who are in the industry know what I'm talking about, those days when just it seems like you turn around and every corner you come around there's something on fire, so to speak. And it just never ends. It's like when it rains it pours, if we want to speak in excessive metaphors. But yeah. Anyway, so I think that was sort of a recap of things to think about as a prospective intern. And then we're wrapping up the discussion about
like potential intern teacher or
employer.
Would you be an employer?
Intern administrators, like mentors.
Mentor, I would
yeah,
say.
like if you want to start as establish an internship program on your farm or your ranch, things to think about. And yeah,
the biggest misconception is that interns are free labor. That I'm gonna get some interns around here, fix this place up, it'll be cheap, just gotta house them or whatever. And let me just tell you, that's a lie.
Yeah, 100%.
Granted, yes, you're not paying. Depending on the situation, but you're not paying as an intern usually as much as you would an employee. So in that respect, maybe yes, you're not. You don't have that expense, but the amount of emotional and like just the amount of teaching you have to pour into those people in order to get them to where to where they can operate successfully on their own. There's a huge amount of like a learning curve that intern has to take in. And if you're in a spot in your farm where, let's say you're kind of starting out, you kind of got your feet under you just a little bit, but you're still not really sure what you're doing, and you're like, if I get some interns in here, they'll help me out, and we'll get this thing going. It's like, don't do that.
Yeah.
they are gonna know less than you do about the farm, and so they're relying on you to teach them, and you can't expect them to know how to make things better. They can, and a lot of times they do, but you can't rely on that. And so
would you say a good way to think about it is like, if you're in a position where you feel like you're gonna incorporate another enterprise onto your farm, right? So like, if you do sheep and you want to incorporate cattle, or you do cattle and you want to incorporate pigs, or whatever, when you get to that point and you're like,
you've got
I feel
one enterprise.
Yeah, I've got it down. I feel like I've got a handle on it. That's how you should feel about your farm in general, because it's really another enterprise that you're entering into with an internship.
And
program.
you got to make sure that your farm as itself is running smoothly. Like you got to get it built up enough that it can kind of go on its own. And you obviously still have to work on it, but it's not like you're in that building stage. You've got it built, and it's just starting to produce, and that's when you want to maybe look at interns, not starting from the ground up, because they just bring a whole nother element of stress and work into your life, that if you're trying to grow your farm, you don't need extra weight on your shoulders.
And that leads into sort of the next thing that we talked about last night, which was that not everybody should or is passionate about teaching. For some people it's very difficult, or it just doesn't come naturally, or it's a really big effort, monumental effort, or pain in the butt to do. If you're one of those people, I would highly consider not doing an internship program, because that's what it is. Like you were saying, the number one thing that you need to be concerned about is educating and pouring education into those usually younger people that are coming onto the farm. So that's definitely something to think about for sure. And then I guess that was around the point that we got interrupted last night. But I think maybe some other things to think about if you're going to implement one is just basic stuff, like where are they going to stay? How
are they going to be paid?
How are they going to be paid or compensated? Yeah, exactly. Because at the end of the day, it's like in this situation, right? Our pay or compensation is like first and foremost experience and knowledge that we gain from Greg and Jan.
That's huge.
Which is the number one thing. That's massive, and that should be a priority for any intern. But then the other compensation pieces are, like, we do get paid a stipend every month, and it's pretty modest. It's just enough stipend.
No, never else stipend.
Stipend. We do get paid a small amount, like every month, and it's enough to sort of cover our grocery bill and a little bit extra. And then as well, like our groceries are supplemented with a chest freezer full of meat, as many gallons of milk, and as many dozens of eggs as we need in a week.
And it's raw milk.
And it's raw milk, which is a huge bonus. But but anyway, so like those are that's like a huge piece of, dairy, eggs, and meat are some of the most expensive pieces of your when you go to the grocery store, that's what's going to cost the most money. And so that being taken out of the equation helps, as well as the fact that we live in a fully stocked and supplied trailer, and they pay the utilities, and so
they take care of us.
Yeah, so like they may not be paying us a lot, but like if you start to layer on all of those like compensations, if you want to call it, it's a pretty. I think it's a pretty good deal. You know what I mean?
Goodness. Yeah, and, for sure. I'd honestly do it just for for nothing.
But
just for the experience.
But those are the things that you need to think about if you need to make it comfortable and like a good experience for that intern. I mean, you don't need to roll out the red carpet and like be ludicrously, I don't know what the term would be, like pulling out all the stops, so to speak, for your interns and getting them all sorts of expensive stuff or paying them a ton or whatever. Like that's really not the point.
But you just gotta realize that they're humans too, and so like the some of the comforts that you enjoy, they also enjoy. And so if you can help kind of provide those, it just makes their experience a lot better.
Yep.
And they're more willing to work for you because they see that you're supporting them, so they're going to support you, and it builds a good relationship.
Exactly. And Greg's also really good about like if we go and be above and beyond the Call of Duty, or we do where we're like really hitting our stride and doing things really well over a period of time or whatever, he'll give us a tip or a bonus here and there, and that is like really appreciated on our end. And so like if you're in that mentor position and you've got interns and they're doing really well for you, you can tell they're busting their butt, and maybe they did something, maybe the cows got out and they were out way later than they normally are, and they got everything back in and they had a good attitude and XYZ, right? If that kind of stuff happens, like giving them an extra whatever $100 or whatever for doing something like that it means a lot.
Maybe it's taking them out to eat or something.
Exactly.
In a fancy restaurant. Maybe it's it's other. It doesn't have to be necessarily just money,
but
just rewarding
good hard work.
Yeah, it goes a long ways.
And then it just motivates and instills like
respect and like.
If I take care of you, you're going to take care of me type deal.
Yep.
And that can come in a variety of forms. But you really want to cultivate that, like, sort of like we're all in this together culture on your farm or on your ranch, because those interns might become super, super valuable assets in 4 months, 6 months, however long it takes for them to come up to speed.
Another thing, too, is you can't just leave them with the worst tasks. Like you gotta lead by example, and I mean it doesn't mean that you have to do everything that they do, but just showing that maybe go out and split wood with them sometime, or cut wood, or do some kind of task that shows that you're not just hiring them out just for cheap labor. You're actually trying to teach them, and you're expecting that they work for you in advance. Like it strengthens that relationship. With intern and mentor. So
it's like, don't make them do stuff that you wouldn't be doing yourself. So if you really,
I mean, that's a good rule to live by in life too. Is like,
even if you have employees or whatever.
Anything. Don't ever, no job's too low. If you expect someone else to do the job, you ought to expect
you ought to be doing it yourself.
So
So I think that covers sort of the big things. I'm sure there's some other stuff in there as well.
For those that are interested in either interning somewhere or starting an internship program, maybe either of those ends, a book that I'd really recommend is Joel's book, Fields of Farmers. I read that before I came here, and it's just, there's a lot of like what we just talked about, a lot of information that like if you haven't experienced it before, you don't really realize it. But then if you read this book going into it, you like recognize a lot more, elements to it, and then it'll be almost more enjoyable because you're like, oh, if I do this, it's it's gonna help him, and he's doing this, and that's that's helping me, and it just really ties in that relationship between mentor and intern. So
yeah,
I would recommend reading that book.
Yeah.
A lot of good stuff in there, and it's not just he talks about internship programs and stuff, but there's a lot more in that book too. But the internship part of that book is really really good. So
and then I guess from a I was gonna say, like, from another sort of administrative perspective, you should also think about like how long you want those interns on your farm.
Yeah.
Because there's advantages and disadvantages to short versus long internships, and it really depends on the individual and what they're looking to do as to what kind of program is going to be interesting to them. But from an administrative perspective, you got to think about things like the shorter the program is, the more programs you're going to be able to have. Therefore, the more people you're going to be able to teach and cycle through on your farm, which may be a good thing. You get a lot of new faces, a lot of new perspectives. You get a lot of opportunities to like hone your craft of like bringing people up and teaching them and whatever, and that's great. But there's some serious drawbacks to short internship programs, and I would say a short program to me would be like a growing season. That would be short.
Or 4 months.
Like four months,
or
6 months, something like that. Anything shy of a year, I would say, would qualify as a short internship program. And
the reason being is it takes about 4 to 6 months. Depending on the individual, obviously.
Yep.
But it takes about that long, and it was the same way with us before Ben and I, or the intern, feels comfortable that they kind of know what's going on. They've been through the
routine,
the worst of it.
Yeah.
They know what to expect. And then, like, we noticed it last year, is like the first 6 months felt really long, and the last 6 months that we just had flew by. And it's just like we get into a routine now, and so it's like it just becomes more fluid. So if you're every 6 months you're cranking interns out, that's great, but then they're never going to get to a point. I should say never. It's less likely for them to get to a point.
A lower percentage of them.
Yeah. We'll get to a point where they can start operating smoothly on the place, and so I think that's a huge advantage of the intern for the mentor, is like once you teach them, then they can help you run it for however long while learning. So.
Yeah. But again, like, some people are just not going to be willing to, or don't want to commit that large a portion of their time. So like you will capture candidates that you otherwise wouldn't, right? That aren't as committed to like a year long program. From the other point of view, year-long programs have the advantage, like you were saying, is you get that sort of break-in phase, and then you get an equal amount of time, almost, if not more, where they're at that operation phase where they become a huge asset to your farm. From the intern's perspective, you just get so many more reps being there for a year. You get to see a full, all 4 seasons, 2 seasons, however many seasons you got. They get to see every season. They get to see just more stuff, more reps, more experience. And so when
more
they
things
leave,
can go wrong, because when things go wrong, that's when you learn the best.
Yeah, no, it's 100% true.
I'm not lying when I say that.
If everything went right, it'd be pretty easy and not a very valuable experience. Which is, in the moment, doesn't feel like it, but looking back on it, it's like I'm glad that happened, because now I'm prepared for my own chaos when it happens on my place or a place that I'm managing. I know how to pull a calf, or I know how to like get a sheep back in when it's like running around like a maniac, or like insert disaster, drought.
I know how to butcher a cow when she kills herself
in the corral. Like all kinds of stuff like that. Like, in the moment, those things suck, but in as far as a learning perspective, it's hugely valuable. And if you're only there for 4 to 6 months, there's only so many things that can go wrong, and so you're only gonna have so many of those opportunities to learn. So that's a big thing, but obviously, like, there's people that aren't going to be willing to commit to a year, and it's a big commitment on your part as well to be able to host somebody for a year or whatever. And then the downside also is, like, if you've got a complete dud of an intern,
yeah,
like, you sort of have committed to them for a year, unless they do something flagrant, and then you could fire
obviously
them.
it's always your operation and you have the final say as to if like someone is just absolutely not working out and it's a danger to others or it's a danger to himself or herself, you can let that person go, but that's not ideal.
Yeah,
you'd rather not that.
But like, even if it's somebody who's just like they're going through the motions and meeting minimum requirements, but you can tell it's really sort of like pulling teeth to get them to do what you would like them to do. Like, it's hard because you can't really get rid of them without, you know, giving yourself a bad name and without a reason, but at the same time they're not really putting forth the effort. So if you get somebody like that, if you're there for a year, you just got to suck it up, and you got, you know, like, whatever, an extra 6 months of time that you otherwise could have gotten rid of them at. But I mean, those are conversations that you need to have with the person and sort of decide for yourself, like, what the call is there. But it's a commitment from both perspectives, from the intern's perspective and from your perspective. You're committing to each other for an entire year, which is not an insignificant period of time. I would be of the opinion that, like, 2-year internships are awesome. Like, I mean, I'll check back with you at the end of this, but, like, even after a year flew by, and then it's like, man, it'd be great to just get some more reps, and we get to do that. So
we're both pumped about it.
Anyway, I think that's probably a good sesh.
Synopsis.
I think it's a good synopsis. Tied up some loose ends with the conversation last week. We'll jump into some questions, and if people have any more questions about intern stuff, throw it in the deal. The one thing I will say before we jump into questions is, if you or you know somebody who's interested in interning here, I'll give you just a quick rundown on how you do it. You need to email Greg or Jan and request an application. They will then send you the application, and you need to fill that out by August 31st.
At midnight.
That's the deadline and then that would be for the following growing season, because the internship starts in April. So you submit your application in August, at the end of August.
Before
August 31st. You can submit it early, but before August 31st. And then if you get accepted, you would start the following April. Mm-hmm. And so once you do that, we read all the applications.
Ben and I both.
And Connor will read them too. And then we sit down and have a discussion about who's on the short list. We'll bring out 3 to 5 people to the farm for...
Yeah, by short list, it means the top 5 or
3 depending on what the candidate pool is like. We'll bring them out to the farm for a weekend, basically 3-4 days of work, and that's for us to learn about them and get to meet them and see how they operate, and it's for them to see how we operate and get to know the operation here. Then after all those short list people have done their visit, we sit down and have another discussion and decide who we really liked, and then we'll go from there. And there's no 1 to 2 interns is pretty typical, but it just depends on the candidate pool and what the situation is and so forth. But that's the deal. Email Greg and Jan, get that application in by August 31st at midnight, and
if you guys are serious about it, I mean, do it.
Yeah,
I would highly recommend it.
I mean, obviously, we've gotten from what I know from Jan, we've gotten a decent amount of applications, but there's still there's still a lot of availability. It's not like we're inundated and you don't have any chance.
Oh yeah.
So
there's no limit on it either. I mean, if you're interested, send an application in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like
we're going to read every
single one. Everybody's going to get a fair chance. It's not like first come, first serve or anything. So,
and the one last thing I'll say is my biggest piece of advice for the application is to be yourself.
Yep.
Don't try to answer the questions in a way that you think we would like you to answer them, because it's very easy for us to tell reading the applications who is into it and who is not.
Mm-hmm.
And that's for me, it's my number one criteria reading them is if I can feel through the application that they're jazzed up about this and they'd love the opportunity to come out, I'll pass them through and you obviously have a discussion with everybody else. But that was one of the biggest determining factors I saw in the applicant pool last year was
It's the passion.
The passion. And if you're not that good at conveying a written application, then you need to work on it, because I get that some people it's not the best medium for them, but it's just something that in life you're gonna have to improve that skill.
And it's not that necessarily we're looking at like writing skills or
no, not at all.
It's like if you are like into this, you're gonna show through how you're talking or how you're writing that you not necessarily that you know, but like that you are invested in and show a serious interest
like
in it.
serious.
And it's easy to weed. I mean, just from reading last fall, it's like you can easily pick out those that
Didn't take the time.
Definitely are interested and definitely just did it because they thought it was a cool opportunity. Which there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
It's just.
And the other thing too is like I also remember some applications where they weren't themselves enough. Like it's like you could tell reading the application that they were trying to answer the questions as best they could, as in like trying to like give the response that we thought they should be giving, as opposed to just speaking from their own human self and saying like, this is me, this is what I'm into, you know what I mean? Like this is why I'm passionate about it, this is why I think it's going to be useful for me in the future. Like just being, you could tell those that were honest and passionate versus those that were trying to put up a front a little bit versus those that just didn't take the time. So just be yourself. If you got the passion, it's gonna come through in the application, and I think that's about it as far as that's concerned. All right, let's jump into some questions.
All right, we got a bunch of them.